Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive.
Always ready. What are we exploring today?
Well, today we're diving into something I think we can all relate to, worshiping God.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, how we connect with something bigger than ourselves. We're using this text called Talking About Jesus. It's got some pretty fascinating stuff in it.
I'm intrigued. What kind of fascinating stuff?
Okay, so get this. It talks about this guy, and he worshiped like 3 times a day facing a specific city.
Wow, 3 times a day. That's dedication.
Right. It makes you think, like, how often do we consciously set aside time to connect with God? And also, why a specific city? I mean, shouldn't it be about the interconnection, not the outward action?
It is about the interconnection, absolutely. But the text uses that example to, I think it's to highlight the intensity of this guy's devotion. It was like his whole being was focused on God.
Okay, so who's this guy?
His name is Daniel,
Yeah.
and the city he faced was Jerusalem.
Jerusalem, huh? So, like, what was the big deal about Jerusalem? Why not just, like, pray wherever he was?
Right, good question. Back then, Jerusalem wasn't just any city. It was, well, think of it as the center of his faith. It represented the dwelling place of God. So by facing Jerusalem, he was physically aligning himself, focusing his attention on God.
Oh, I see. It was like a physical reminder of where he placed his trust and devotion.
Exactly.
But nowadays, I mean, we don't really have a physical Jerusalem, do we? I mean, in that same sense.
Not in the same literal way, no.
Hmm.
But the point the text makes is that we don't need a specific place. Our hearts are the true altars.
That's a really cool way to put it. Our hearts are the true altars.
Right.
So then what helps us focus our attention on God in the modern world?
Well, the text talks about lifting our hearts towards God. It's about that inner posture, that conscious effort to connect, regardless of where we are or what we're doing.
Okay, lifting our hearts. Can you unpack that a little? What does that actually mean?
Well, it's kind of like aligning our inner compass with God's presence. And it doesn't have to be complicated.
So, like, how do we actually do that?
The text highlights 3 key elements: praise, thanksgiving, and surrender.
Okay, so like praising God, right, for who
Yeah.
he is, being thankful for, well, everything really, big and small. And surrender. What do they mean by surrender?
Surrender is about letting go of our worries, our desires, and trusting in God's plan. It's about acknowledging that we don't have all the answers and being open to his guidance.
Ah, okay, so it's like instead of physically facing Jerusalem, we're directing our hearts towards God no matter where we are or what we're doing.
You got it. And that shift in perspective, that constant awareness of God's presence, it can change everything.
In what way?
Well, it allows us to see our daily lives, even, the mundane stuff, through a lens of love and faith. It's like finding that deeper meaning in everything we do.
So it's not about just checking off a box, going through the motions, but about nurturing that continuous connection with God.
Precisely. Think of it like a quiet conversation with God that kind of weaves its way through your day.
Ooh, I like that. Like, what would that look like practically?
Well, it could be a silent prayer of thanks while you're stuck in traffic. Or maybe you notice God's beauty in nature during a walk. Or even just acknowledging his presence in the stillness of your heart before you fall asleep.
That's amazing. It's really powerful how something as simple as, like, shifting our focus can have such a big impact.
It really is.
This deep dive has been, well, really eye-opening. It shows us that worship isn't limited to Sundays or, specific rituals. It's about cultivating a heart that's constantly in tune with God.
And that leaves us with a really important question for everyone listening. How can you cultivate that spirit of continuous worship in your own life? What small acts of praise, gratitude, or surrender can you weave into your day?
Wow, that's a great question to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.